Good morning, and thank you for attending this webinar. We will be talking about the rivers of France. Here's how it works. My name is Joost Ouendag. I do these on a fairly regular basis, and I will give you a brief introduction. We'll have some pauses where you can ask questions, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you will find a little red dot, or you find this little menu where you can either pose your questions, or sometimes we ask you a question and then a little red dot shows up. And then we'd love it if you were to put an answer into it. It's a poll. It's really just a way for us to know what you're thinking as we're doing this. Okay, we're going to get right into it. And welcome to Viking. This is the map of the world of Viking that I'm showing you. Oh, by the way, sorry, James is here. James is going through the slides with us. He's also he's the man behind the scenes. And Benjamin is here. Benjamin, are you there?
Yes, I
just
am.
Need to hear. Oh, good. So Benjamin is going to ask questions, your questions, and he will pitch them to me anytime that we have a little break and then we do a lot of questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, here we go. This is a ship on the Seine. I can't really tell which one it is. We have several of them, of course, and this is near Les Andelys. And this slide just really tells you about the kudos that we get from Condé Nast. We get them from Condé Nast. We get them from Travel and Leisure. We don't want you to take our word for it. You can look at these magazines. They're quite well established in the travel business, and we win awards. Okay, why would you travel with us aside from the awards? What do we do? What makes us? What do we believe makes us different? And I'll go through this relatively quickly because I really want to get into the itinerary bit. But here it is. We want you to explore the destination. We believe you're not there on the ship to just relax and see the scenery. You can, of course, see the scenery go by, but we want you to get off the ship. We want you to explore. We want you to get to know what you're looking at, the destinations. And we have an onboard enrichment program to match. And this is why we aim for what we call the thinking person. So destination-oriented, for the thinking person, we include everything that you need and nothing that you don't. This is our famous not list. No casinos, no nickeling and diming, no hidden charges. You know what you pay when you make your booking. There is some optional excursions that you can book, but again, this is something that you all do months out. There's no one on the ship that is trying to get you to spend a little bit more money. No nickeling and diming. And again, we give you what we believe you need and nothing that you don't. And we actually really internally spend a lot of time in trying to figure out what it is that our guests really need and what they don't need. A lot of detail goes into thinking about, or a lot of thinking goes into these little details. On shore, we have a way of exploration that you can there are three overlapping categories. We focus on local life, a little bit on the working world. What do people do in the places that we visit? And where we can, we take you behind the scenes. We open doors that normally remain closed, where we have relationships, direct relationships with individuals, with museums, whatever it is, and we pass on that access to you. Okay, finally, and this is, of course, the Eiffel Tower, and in front of it is one of our long ships. There's a little trick to the ships that sail on the Seine right off the bat. They're a little shorter than our traditional long ships. The long ships travel all over Europe, and we have had some modifications on the long ship model for particular rivers, and the Seine is one of them. Has nothing to do with the river itself, but it is very tightly wound when you go into Paris, and therefore it's a little shorter. It actually has some fewer cabins. It's about 33 feet shorter than a standard longship. Other than that, it's the exact same vessel. And in Bordeaux and in the south of France, we have full-size longships. So here we go. Let's start with the north of France. Sorry. So this is the Paris in the heart of Normandy itinerary. Right off the bat, this is an itinerary that starts in Paris and it ends in Paris, and you go as far as we can take you to Rouen, and from there we travel overland to the Normandy beaches. If and this is kind of a subset of people in the group of people that would consider traveling to France. If really the Normandy beaches is the one thing you're super interested in, we have an itinerary that focuses almost entirely on that. And you can extend your time by picking your excursions very carefully. You can extend your time on the beaches to a full 3 days. This is not that itinerary. This is our standard Paris in the heart of Normandy. And I always like to use a map when I kind of walk you through the itinerary. So we start in Paris, and because the river in and by itself is relatively short, but it's very, very windy, we visit some of the ports going downriver towards Rouen. So La Roche-Guyon is one of the ports we see going downriver. Venlon is one of the ports we see going downriver. And then we're in Rouen, and then the upriver ports are Les Andelys and Le Pec. And this sounds a little confusing, perhaps, but you'll see it as I walk you through the day by day. And here is where we start. This is Paris. This is the ship. And this is not a trick picture. This is actually where the ships are in relationship to the Eiffel Tower. Best thing about this particular view or this particular angle is go on the sun deck in the evening, because the Eiffel Tower has this light show going on. It's free, and at times it's relatively sedate, but at times it's absolutely spectacular. Okay, this is the Arc de Triomphe. We generally on this voyage we have the Paris bit. We save it to the. Oh, actually, let me just. I'm making a mistake here. Sorry, I'm going back a little bit. No, we don't save it to the end. We do Paris before we get into the Seine. So this is the Arc de Triomphe, and this is Notre Dame. You're going to ask, can we see Notre Dame? On our city tour, which is the included tour that we do on day 2, you will get to see it. Going in, of course, now that it's reopened, is not that easy. It's quite time consuming. It's still free, but it's recommended that you make an appointment, that you pick a time slot, and that you're there at that time slot. It avoids spending a lot of time in line, and the lines can be quite significant. And this would be something that you can do in the afternoon on your own. Here's the Pyramid and the Louvre, which is one of the excursions that we offer, a visit to the Louvre art collection. And then this is where we end up in La Roche-Guyon on the first day out of Paris. This Roche-Guyon is this castle that you see in the background. There is a magnificent mansion in front of it that is of a much more recent date. And then the gardens in front of it, that they kind of take the bottom central part of the picture. Those also are part of the mansion. One of the things we do here is there's an excursion, and the regular excursion just visits the little town, has a look around the castle and the palace ground and the castle grounds. But one of the things that we can do here is bring you into the castle and give you kind of a primer on how the French set the table. And part of that is, you know that the French are obsessed with food. And so setting the table is something very, very important. The gardens that you see are actually not just ornamental. They're also essentially farm gardens, which every one of these castles, of course, used to have. And that's where you get your fruits and your veggies. Not so much an ornament, or not so much a vegetable garden, is where you go next. In Vernon, you visit Giverny and the gardens that Monet built around his house. And this is the house that he lived in with the green shutters. No potatoes, no fruit trees. He was interested in creating gardens that he could paint over and over and over again. And this view here, this is where Monet painted all of his water lilies. What you want to do, if Monet is what you're interested in, and if this is one of the main reasons why you're going on this particular journey, is you see Monet in the Musée d'Orsay, and then you go across the street, or across the river, as a matter of fact, on the other side of where the Musée d'Orsay is in Paris, you visit the Orangerie. And the Orangerie is a small little museum that has nothing but Monet's water lily paintings. Because the house itself, when you go to Giverny, there are no Monet paintings. There are reproductions, but there are no originals. Okay, and then we do some sailing along the river. Of course, we try to give you a little bit of time to just enjoy the scenery from the deck, and it brings us to Rouen. And this picture with the half-timbered houses, very typical for the older parts of the city. The Norman style of half-timbered is very much vertical. You do see some crisscrosses here and there, but it's usually, it has these very nice little narrow wooden beams in the construction of the facade. Rouen is worth a visit because it has an awful lot. Not just it's not just a jump off point to get to Normandy, to the Normandy beaches. The city itself it's the capital of the Normandy, and the Normandy was a duchy for a long time. It was a very powerful duchy. The King of France had to listen very carefully to the Dukes of Normandy. He wasn't all that powerful, and the Dukes of Normandy had quite a formidable army. This is the Grosse Horloge. That does not mean the big pocket watch. It means the big clock. It's in the middle of, it's in the old part of Rouen, and you can walk under it. This is a beautiful, beautiful corner. Gets a little busy every once in a while, but this is something that you'll see on the city tour that is included when you visit Rouen. Here, by the way, we also can take you out to a farm. And again, this is, French obsession with food. You get to cook a little bit. You get to understand a little bit on what they grow on the farm. Normandy is not a wine region. Normandy is where you have a lot of apple orchards, and from these apples you make calvados. And that's really important. Calvados has a very high alcohol content, and people like to drink little bits of calvados after they eat their copious meals. A lot of what they eat has to do with cheese, because Normandy is also pasture land. They have beautiful cows, and they make gorgeous, very creamy, nice cheeses. And if you eat a lot of cheese, you have to have some calvados to make your stomach feel happy again. Let's see, then from Rouen, we do go to the Normandy beaches. This is Omaha Beach, and this is actually Arromanches, where you have these caissons that sit out in the water. A harbor was built in the wake of D-Day, June 6, 1944. They used these very large barges and caissons to create an artificial harbor. This is Omaha Beach, where a lot of the very heavy fighting was done. And not far from there, in Courcelles-de-Mer, you will find the war cemetery, the American War Cemetery. We do, by the way, recognize that we don't just have Americans. We also have Canadians and Brits on our voyages, and that means we have two different excursions here. One focuses on the beaches where the American troops landed. The other focuses on where the Commonwealth troops landed. And then after the visit to the Normandy beaches, the ship starts to travel back to Paris. And that brings you to Les Andelys. You can see on the left-hand side of this image, it's relatively small, but you can see a ship, and it's cruising towards what's in the foreground, and that is Chateau Gaillard. That is almost 1,000 years old these days. It was built by Richard the Lionheart in an era when the French and the British the English, were fighting over who was going to rule Normandy. Eventually, it did not end well for Chateau Gaillard. The French king took over the castle, and that meant that eventually Normandy became French and not English. Further upriver is the town of Le Pec. It's a suburb, really, of Paris, and it's the most convenient suburbs. It's the most convenient place to dock in case you wanted to go to Versailles. The included excursion here goes to Malmaison, which is the palace where Napoleon and his beloved Josephine spent the latter days of his life just before he was eventually banned. And Versailles is an optional excursion where you can either, you do both, but in my view, the palace is great. The gardens, especially in nice weather, the gardens are absolutely spectacular. And we spend a considerable amount of time there so that you can do both. And that brings us back to Paris. We're going to watch a quick little video, and right after that, I will be answering questions.
This 8-day itinerary features iconic Paris, plus the quiet beauty of Normandy. Your journey begins as you board your Viking ship, located near the Eiffel Tower. It's an ideal base from which to explore the city's many wonders as you enjoy an overnight stay. Then it's on to La Roche, Lyon and Vernon, where you're welcomed by beautiful half-timbered houses in these quintessentially French villages. You'll travel on to Giverny, home of Impressionist Claude Monet, and stroll through his beloved gardens. In Rouen, the detailing on the spectacular Gothic cathedral will take your breath away. Along the Normandy coast, set foot on the D-Day landing beaches and pay tribute to the soldiers of World War II. You'll sail on to picturesque Les Andelys with its imposing Chateau Gaillard. From Le Pec, you'll sail off for Napoleon's Chateau Malmaison, where he spent his final days in France. Or you can explore the majestic Palace of Versailles on an optional excursion. Your memorable Viking voyage concludes back in Paris, where you may choose to extend your stay and explore even more of this remarkable city.
Okay, Benjamin, question time.
Yes, let's start with a question from Kimberly, who's curious about the food variety on river cruises. And Jacqueline has the same question, especially in France. Could you speak to the onboard cuisine and variety?
Yep. Okay, so you think of our food offering as it's two things. One is if you're a little, homesick and you'd like a burger, we have some standbys, if you will, some always available, a piece of salmon, a piece of beef, and the comfort food that you're used to at home. And then we have a variety of, it's a very international cuisine. And of course, we make a very distinct nod towards France. So on some days you will have the food that is typical for Normandy. If you're in the south, you'll have the food that is typical for Provence. You'll probably have some cooking demonstrations on the ship that also give you a bit of a portal into the food of the region. So that's the idea. You can indulge as much or as little as you want into the local cuisine. And while I'm at it, we encourage you to go off the ship every once in a while and eat in a local restaurant in the southwest of France. On our Bordeaux voyage, we actually take the entire ship out to a chateau to have dinner there off the ship, and when you want to bring in some wine, go right ahead. There's no corkage fee. We encourage you to drink whatever it is that you can find out there. It is really supposed to be, not one size fits all, but rather to each his own. If you want to stay safe, you can do so. If you want to experiment a little bit, then you can.
Sounds delicious. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart, Mary, and a few others are curious about the weather and would like to know when is the best time of year to do a trip like Paris in the heart of Normandy?
Okay, so you're in all of France. Really is in a temperate climate zone, which means there's going to be a little rain. Not all the time, but you should always bring like a little raincoat. In general, it doesn't rain an awful lot, but and it doesn't get too hot. It doesn't get too cold. This is for the north. In the south, in July and August, it gets a little toasty. And in the southwest, around Bordeaux, you're fine because you have a breeze from the Atlantic. So overall, the season is quite long. It stretches from March all the way into December. Right around November, December, you do need that coat. You want to bring a sweater because it gets a little cooler. Actually, the south of France is really nice around that time. But we do have some December cruises on the Seine, and for those, you want to be bundled up a little bit. But overall, you don't need to take very special precautions, and mostly you'll hit sun.
That's good to know. Now, you had mentioned the spectacular view of the Eiffel Tower from the sun deck of the ship. Now, Bill is asking, is there a bar service or opportunity to maybe sip champagne?
Yes, of course. The sun deck has, we have wait staff that manage the entire ship, whether it's and you can't see it in this particular picture, but whether it's on the bow where we have the aquavit terrace, which is an outdoor space, or you're on the sun deck, those are the spaces we want you to use. Our owner is a huge fan of outdoor dining wherever he can, and this is how the ships. He was very heavily involved in designing the ships, and this is how he's designed the ship so that you have a lot of, use the outdoors as much as you possibly can.
Now, we've received many questions from David and Mary about the Eiffel Tower. Does Viking offer any excursions to the top of the Eiffel Tower?
You can go to the top of the Eiffel Tower, but it's on your own because the Eiffel Tower is not as an attraction. It doesn't deal with large groups. It's relatively close. Yeah, you'll probably need to wait in line a little bit. You can make a reservation for the dining room in the top, and that will get you on the fast track elevator. So it's fairly straightforward. It's something that you have to keep in mind if you do this in peak season. It's going to eat up a lot of your time. And I'm saying this, I'm not biased. I love walking around in Paris, and I like the view from the top of the Eiffel Tower. But on the other hand, there's so much to do around the Eiffel Tower and in other parts of the city that I would just caution you to not. If the lines are really long, maybe leave it for another time. You're always going to come back to Paris.
That's great to know. Thank you. Irene, Ellen, and James are curious about how much time Viking spends in Normandy, and they're wondering how they get from Rouen to Normandy and how long that would take.
It's a coach, right? And you start to get from Rouen, you start to get close to where the fighting took place after about an hour and 15 minutes. It's a full day excursion. You have lunch in Arromanches, which is close to, it's not that far from Omaha Beach. So it's a full day. It's a full day affair.
Somewhat related, Richard shares that he had relatives who fought at Normandy, and he'd like to know how he can help locate the graves at the Normandy cemetery.
That is something that you can actually write to the cemetery, American War Cemeteries. There's a Colville-sur-Mer, but you can go on a website, and I would just Google American War Cemeteries. They have every cemetery in Europe. and some, I think, outside of Europe, where you can look this up. And they're very, very helpful.
Interesting. Thank you.
Hmm.
Mandy and Letty are asking, are there any Christmas markets to visit in France during the holiday season?
Yes, there are, but it's not a traditional Christmas market destination. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong. And Paris, just before Christmas, when the Galeries Lafayette and all the big department stores have these beautiful, beautiful shop windows. But it's not what you think of. It's not a traditional Christmas market destination. If you wanted to do Christmas markets in France, you would actually have to go on the Rhine getaway, because then we take you to Strasbourg. And Strasbourg, on the east side of France, has Christmas markets. But the Seine and southern France, not so much.
Okay, thank you. And Megan and Jacqueline are wondering if Viking offers any excursions into the restored Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris.
No, again, this is something where it's free to the public. And right now, and I think this will go on for another year and a half to 2 years, it has it's very, very busy because everyone wants to see what it looks like now. And guided tours are really not so much of an option. You can get leaflets and things like that. It gets, it is a functioning church too. So you're somewhat limited in how much you can do on tours, but you can absolutely see it. I would encourage you.
Looks like we have time for just one more question for this part, but
Okay.
Jeff and Carol are wondering if there's any opportunities to visit Montmartre while in Paris.
Yep, absolutely not a problem. So you have an afternoon to yourself. And then when you come back, you still have some time, after the ship goes back to Paris. I would, though, if you've never been to Paris, you have to book a 3-night extension. That's just, you have to, because Paris is not, to do just a day and a half in Paris is probably not, it's just going to wet your whistle, but it's not going to quench your thirst. Yes, you can go to Montmartre. Yeah, absolutely. You will quickly get used to using the metro. It's easy. By now, you can use your credit card, so you don't need to buy tickets anymore. So it's totally convenient. And it takes a little while to get used to, but once you've done it, maybe 2 rides or so, you're going to be an expert. Bicycles will take you around. Paris is by now a really safe place for bicycles. And finally, there are taxis and Ubers. So, it's not a problem.
Oh, we can ask one more question, I suppose related. Besides Paris, Wayne is asking how close the ship is docked from the town or city center, and is a ship docked every single night?
No, sometimes it goes a little through the night, but let's see. In Les Andelys is very small, so you're in the middle of the town. Vernon is small, you're in the middle of the town. Rouen, you're in the middle of the town. Yeah, Le Pec, you're in Le Pec, but Le Pec is in and by itself is not really what you go there for. So in Le Pec, we take you away and into Versailles or to Malmaison. But overall, yeah, you can do this thing where you just walk off the ship and you go off and do your own thing. It's a possibility. Absolutely. Okay, Benjamin, shall we go on to Lyon and Provence?
Allons-y.
Okay, very good. Here you see what we do in southern France, from Avignon to Lyon. And again, of course, this is a cruise that you can do in both directions. Lyon to Avignon, Avignon, Lyon. We're talking in this case about Avignon to Lyon. And here you see the map. So that's always a little tricky. You're in Avignon, and then before you head upriver, so to the north, you first go to Arles, to the south a little bit. So there's always this little bit of an appendix. And that has everything to do with Avignon being the better port to start a voyage. This is Avignon. In the foreground, the ship, and in the background, you can see the Palais des Papes, the Palace of the Popes. For a very peculiar time in history, there was a pope in Rome and there was a counter-pope in Avignon. And for the duration of this lasted long enough to build this rather forbidding-looking palace. It's more of a fortress rather than a palace, and that's one of Avignon's claim to fame. The other one, of course, you can see in the far left of the picture, a little towards the top. That's the Pont d'Avignon, that bridge that goes to nowhere and that you can dance on, or rather under. In Avignon, we toured the city. Here's the bridge. Here's the Pont d'Avignon. And in the background, you can still see the Palace of the Popes. Then, like I said, the appendix is to the south in Arles. Arles is known for really three things, I would say. It's a jump-off point for other places around the Provence, and in lavender season, that means, Arles is a perfect place to go out and see the lavender fields. Short season, by the way, but we'll get to that maybe. It has some spectacular Roman ruins. You can see the Arène here in the foreground on the left. And of course, it is a place where Vincent van Gogh spent some time and painted quite frantically the blue skies and the yellow fields and the gray walls and everything that he saw in and around Avignon and later Les Baux de Provence. This shows you, the next slide, those are the lavender fields. Right off the bat, lavender in Provence is a crop. It's used to make lavender oil. So guess what happens with these beautiful purple fields just when the time is right? They get cut. And all that is left is a grayish green stubble. So it's a relatively short season. If you are in season, and this happens to be in June, you can always ask. It's never fail safe because it's a crop, like I said, and sometimes the lavender is early and sometimes it's late. And it's like I said, it's a relatively short growing season. If that is the case, then we offer shore excursions to see the lavender fields. Other than that, in and around Avignon, we do quite a bit of wine tasting. This gentleman that you see on the right-hand side, he wears an apron of Maison Bouachon, which is in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And that little village in and by itself is it's not really a wine region, but the blend from Châteauneuf-du-Pape has a very stellar reputation. So we offer an excursion that explores that part of Provence. We then start to head north, and you have this landscape. This is the Ardèche. This is Pont d'Arc, and you're in the Ardèche is relatively dry. This is why the cheeses here are usually goat or sheep, because goat and sheep like it in the Ardèche. They nibble on the dry shrubs and things like that. Cows, not so much. So goat cheese is very typical for Provence. And here we offer in this area a train ride. This is on the next slide. This train is in Tournon. And it basically goes, it's a short little ride. It goes through these gorges of the Ardèche. You see these steep cliffs, the grayish green shrubbery, and it's all in this old-timey train. It's a steam train. It makes a racket when it takes off. It's fun. You then sail along, and eventually you'll make it to Vienne. And in Vienne, you can see this. This is the Maison. It's not the Maison Carrée, but it's a temple of Augustus and Livia. The Maison Carrée is somewhere else, but it looks very similar. It's a fairly decent-sized, square, beautiful temple because Vienne again was a very important city in the Roman Empire. Provence, the name of the region, comes from Provincia, which was the name that the Romans used for this area. It was the only place in in the early days of the Roman Empire, that was actually considered part of Rome. The other areas that the Romans conquered were kind of, well, those are outlying areas. Provence was very much considered part of, if you will, the heartland. And then eventually after Vienne, you make it to Lyon. And this is the Fourvière Hill. There is a little Eiffel Tower there. And Lyon is it's actually not the second largest city, because that's Marseille. But Lyon and Paris have this relationship. Paris, of course, is the number one city. Lyon is the second city. And they have this tiny little Eiffel Tower. And because it is on a hill, it is ever so slightly higher above sea level than the Eiffel Tower. And no one really cares about that except the people in Lyon. Lyon is a place where you go for the food. The bouchons are basically, bouchon is a cork, and in this case it's also used for restaurants, bistros, if you want. It's everywhere, and Lyon is really kind of the it's the place where you want to go for food. People in Lyon will tell you more so even than Paris. So again, here we have shore excursions that focus very much on food. We also take you to Beaujolais, and that is a region just north of Lyon. It's in the very southern. It's kind of on the southern border of the Burgundy region. And of course, here this is also a wine region where you get to taste wine. And we have a little video. And after the video, questions again for southern France.
Join Viking on a magical 8-day sailing between France's idyllic Provence and Lyon. Your voyage begins in charming Avignon on the Rhône River, where you'll explore the historic Palace of the Popes. Next, it's Roman ruins amid the quaint atmosphere of Arles, site of some of Vincent van Gogh's most famous works. Medieval Viviers is your next stop, followed by scenic sailing with views of rugged Défilé de Danzère. In Tournon, enjoy an old-fashioned train ride through the picturesque gorges of the Ardèche. While in beautiful Vienne, an overnight stay provides time to see sights, including an impressive array of Roman antiquities. Then it's on to Lyon, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and gastronomic capital. Next, it's wine tasting amid fabled vineyards in the heart of the Beaujolais wine region. Before concluding your sojourn through the French countryside with a return to historic Lyon.
All right, Benjamin, questions?
Yes, let's start with, you mentioned it briefly, but perhaps you could remind our guests, as several viewers are asking, when is the best time to see the iconic lavender fields of Provence?
It's in June, and again, it's a relatively short period, and it's like I said, it's a bit of a crapshoot. You can get lavender everywhere, because it's sold in a lot of places. And like I said, if you happen to be there at the right time, we'll take you there. And you know, the early season may bleed a little bit into a late May, and maybe there's still a little bit of lavender out in the fields in early July.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So a technical question now. Cheryl and Robert would like to know if ATMs are readily available along the Rhône River for them to obtain euros, or should they plan on converting before they depart the U.S.?
No, I mean, you can, if you want, you can get a little bit of cash to convert it into into coins for tipping and such. But you might as well just, the first port you go to, you find an ATM. They're not difficult to get to. And that's where you get the best exchange rate. And that's really the most convenient. And before you know it, this is always the beauty in with the coins in Europe. Euro coins are actually, they come in ones and twos, and it's you have a pocket full of coins, which in the U.S. means if you have some quarters, it might be, a few dollars. If you have a pocket full of euro coins, it adds up. And you'll quickly get, you'll people break 10s and 20s in shops. You'll have coins before you know it. So I would probably not do a lot of changing money before you come.
That's great information. Thank you. So we've covered our central docking location on the Paris itineraries. Curtis now is asking if we also dock close to the city center in Lyon.
Yes. And let's see, in Vienne, we also do. In Avignon, you can walk into the city. In Arles, it's a bit of a trek, but you can still walk into the city. And that's it, I think, right? Did I miss? Oh, Tournon. Yeah, you can also walk into the city. Tournon is great. You can actually the ship docks next to this park, and it has these huge sycamore trees. There's a lot of space under those trees where you always have young and old Frenchmen playing jeu de boule, pétanque, bocce ball.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Chris is wondering what airports would they fly into and out of for the Lyon and Provence itinerary?
Mm-hmm. Okay, you fly into Lyon, and that's not always a direct flight. It's most likely via Paris. So you fly into Lyon and you fly out of Marseille from Avignon. That's a convenient transfer. It's a straight shot on a highway to get from Avignon to Marseille.
Thank you. Now, Ryan has a great question. He's curious how this cruise would be for those who are prone to motion sickness.
I understand the question if this were an ocean ship, but you do not have any kind of the most rocking that you will do is as you go into some of the narrower locks, as the ship adjusts a little bit, and it has bumpers on both sides, don't worry, but it might gently bump into the side of the locks a little bit. That is about as exciting as it gets. Other than that, no motion problems. Absolutely not.
Thank you. Here's a great question from Cynthia. Being a gastronomic capital, are there any particular local dishes we should try when dining in a bouchon, as you mentioned in Lyon?
Oh, gosh. You know what? It's bistro food, and there are very classic dishes that people in France associate with bistros, and so you can pick anything from the menu: coq au vin, bœuf bourguignon. They usually have some sort of fish. Great thing in France is you don't have to be close to the ocean to get good fresh fish. The French are so obsessed with food that a lot of the fish that's caught in the Atlantic and in the Mediterranean gets transported to distribution centers. The biggest one of those, of course, is in Paris. And that basically means that you can eat oysters anywhere in France that were caught that morning. And oysters would be on a menu in those bouchons as well. It's almost anything. I would not want to venture into, okay, well, this is what you really need to eat in Lyon. Lyon is a big city. It's always been a big city. It's always been a crossroads. So the cuisine has always had a lot of different influences.
Fantastic. Looks like we are out of time for this Q&A, but I think this would be a good one to segue into the next. A few people are asking about trips that are longer than 8 days in France. Jessica can't decide between the two you just mentioned. What would you recommend?
Do them both. Easy. There is a France's Finest itinerary. Again, you can book it from Avignon all the way to Paris, or from Paris all the way to Avignon. And it's 2 weeks. And you do the whole thing. And in between, you travel by train from Paris to Lyon. Convenient, easy, pleasant enough. Adds a little bit to the experience because now you've been on a French train. And and you can do both. I'd highly recommend that, actually. But I'm biased because I love France. I live in Switzerland, so they're my neighbors, and I go there as much as I possibly can find time for. Okay, so there's the France's finest itinerary. Here's the map, and that shows you that a dotted line in the middle. That's a train ride. That looks daunting, but it really isn't. It's the whole thing is over and done within about 4 hours. So it's a nice little transfer that day. And like I said, in the train you can walk around a little bit. It's quite pleasant. Okay, so that takes care of France's finest. And then we have a little video to introduce you to the wine regions of Bordeaux. And then I'll talk about that itinerary.
Bordeaux has long been home to iconic names like Médoc, Pomerol, Saint-Emilion, Pauillac, Margaux, Sauternes, and Cognac, all of them located within a short distance of each other. Thanks to unique natural elements, including rivers, elevation changes, and a wide range of soils, winemaking has thrived here, resulting in remarkable red wines, white wines, sweet wines, and other aperitifs and digestives. Bordeaux is usually thought of in terms of left bank and right bank, referring to their location along the Gironde River. The left bank is home to the Médoc region, which at one time was swampy marshland. This is red wine country, where tasty Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot grapes enhance wines from Pauillac, Saint-Julien, and Margaux. The vineyards are influenced by the warm waters of the Gironde estuary, southeasterly exposure, and soil that is a mix of soft clay and gravel. It's a rare combination that has delivered Bordeaux's most desired wines. Still on the left bank, but to the south, is the Grave region. Its red wines were sought after long before Médoc existed, and it's said that US President Thomas Jefferson had a special fondness for wine from one of the chateaux here. The Grave region is also home to wonderful white wines, and the much-loved Sauternes and Barsac wines. These intensely sweet white wines are the end result of a phenomenon known as noble rot. It impacts the grapes frequently here, dehydrating them inside the skin, which increases the concentration of sugars. The three main grapes of this area are Sémillon, Sauvignon Blanc, and Muscatel. Between the Garonne and Dordogne rivers is Entre deux mers, which means between two seas. This productive area is the source for the majority of Bordeaux's mainstream red wines. The right bank has its own treasures, like the Libournais region also bordering the Dordogne River. It was first cultivated by the Romans and is home to the highly regarded Pomerol wines. The grapes here are a mix of Merlot and Cabernet Franc, and the soil is influenced by varying degrees of gravel and sand. Just next door is Saint-Emilion, named for the quaint village the vineyards surround. The other notable region includes Bourg and Blaye, situated where the Garonne and Dordogne rivers meet. It's one of the oldest wine-producing areas of Bordeaux. Merlot is the principal grape here, followed by Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Malbec. Sauvignon Blanc grapes are also grown here for use in delightful sparkling wines, while another white grape, Hugueny Blanc, is transformed into cognac. Bordeaux is a diverse, beautiful region that I find fascinating. A mix of intriguing historical treasures and insights into the art of wine and joie de vivre. Whether you're a wine connoisseur or delving into the topic for the first time, Bordeaux is a destination well worth exploring.
Okay, so here is the day by day for the chateaus, rivers, and wine. Our trip in from Bordeaux to Bordeaux. Let's go to the map, and that gives you a better sense of where we are. So this is the southwest of France, and there are three rivers here. From the south, you have the Garonne, that comes from the Pyrenees, and it ends up in the Atlantic. But it forms with the Dordogne. It becomes the Gironde, and the Gironde is a tidal river, and that basically means that all the way past Bordeaux, water levels change enough for the ship to really have to be shifting with the tides, which basically means we don't travel all that far on these rivers. And we constantly have to shift ever so slightly back or forward to make sure that we can pass under bridges and that we don't get stuck anywhere because of tidal issues. It's very manageable. Don't get me wrong. It's not we don't have to reinvent the wheel for every voyage that we do. But when we give you the standard voyage, you will have like adjustments, offsets by 2 hours or so, depending on your exact voyage. Not to worry. This is why the distances aren't very big. We can bring you everywhere. It's a relatively small little area. Okay, let's get going. In Bordeaux, Bordeaux is such a beautiful city. To just walk around Bordeaux, we do a tour. It's one of those places where we're docked very close to the center of the city. It's a place where you could also just, if you wanted to, this is a perfect place to just walk off on your own. Super accessible, has beautiful little shops. My wife, who's a big fan of Paris as well, but she was just recently in Bordeaux. She hadn't been, and she's like, Bordeaux is kind of like Paris without the crowds. So there's an endorsement because she does adore Paris. This is the Opera House in Bordeaux. It's a city that has a very how do I put it? Most of the downtown area was built. Downtown is not a good expression, but most of the core of the city was built around the same time as it became a very important port city, and so it has a very beautiful. Unified. And that was the word I was looking for. It has a very unified downtown area or central area. Sorry, we're having a little bit of a problem, but I will forge on. We've lost a little bit of a connection. You should not really notice this all that much. We're continuing on, and this is a slide of the Dordogne River. And this, now we start to get into the town of Libourne. After the morning in Bordeaux, in the afternoon, we set sail. And then that brings us late in the afternoon or early evening to Libourne. And there we meet this young lady. This is the market in Libourne. You can walk off the ship, and the main square has this market. It's daily, or maybe there's one day where they skip it, but it's daily, and it's one of those places where it's a postcard. It's really how you imagine a market in France to be. People sell cheese, people sell charcuterie, people sell fruits, veggies, tablecloths, the works. So when we do a walking tour of Libourne, it begins and ends with the market. And we always forgive people if they much prefer to just hang out in the market square rather than visit any other historical sites around Libourne. One of the things that you can do from Libourne, and that's in the next slide, is this gentleman with his dog. You have to go a little further inland, and that makes it a day-long excursion where you visit a truffle farmer. And truffle farmers no longer use pigs. Problem with pigs is they eat the merchandise. So pigs are really good at finding truffles, but then you have to be right on top of them for them to not eat the truffles. Dogs, on the other hand, don't do this. They find the truffle and they patiently wait for their owner to come and get the truffles. And what we do here is you learn about how this all works, and then there's a meal that has truffles in every one of the dishes. Yes, even in the dessert. Quite brilliant. This particular gentleman, by the way, has since retired. We found a fellow truffle farmer in the same region. It's a little further inland, like I mentioned. And then next, you see people on bicycles. This is from Bourg. And again, when you look at the map, and you can look at the map on our website too, it all looks very close together, which in fact it is. Bourg is kind of on the opposite bank of Bordeaux. And so the great part about this place is that the hills don't start to rise until you're a little further away from the river, which means there's a very broad swath along the river where you can ride a bicycle. And from Bourg, we have a splendid excursion to Cognac. And you see two people here that are tasting cognac. The best thing here is, as you see all these utensils in the foreground, you get to make your own cognac at Camus. And you get to take it home. Your particular blend is registered. If you wanted to, 10 years down the road, you can write a note to Camus, send them an email and say, I would like a bottle of my blend. They'll blend it for you and they'll send it off to you. So it's a gag. It's fun. But yeah, you can, if you were an expert, you could create your own blend and become famous because of your own blend. You're not very far in Bourg from Blaye. And what you see here in this slide is part of the fortress that was built to guard the mouth of the Gironde. There is a fortress in the middle of that river as well, and on the opposite bank. And this particular fortress was done under Louis XIV. He had an architect, a military architect by the name of Vauban, and he made school with his particular way of building fortresses. His fortifications are all over France, and they're UNESCO World Heritage sites because it is really, for that period, it was something that was absolutely state of the art. And then in this area, we're close on the other side, actually, of Blaye. So you go back and forth between the banks of the river. On the opposite bank of where Blaye is the Médoc region, and here, as I mentioned, we take all guests off the ship to have a dinner on a wine estate. So this is when you're in Médoc and in Margaux wine country, that's all it is. Everyone is talking. Everyone that works there is in the wine business or is in the cork business or is in cooperage. We have an excursion actually where you learn how these barrels are made. And that happens in Bordeaux, but everything around this area is based on the wine industry. Scenic sailing along the Garonne is obviously something that you do. And again, shifts. Sometimes you might set sail at 2:00 in the afternoon, and the next cruise may set sail at 3:30, as it is required by tidal influences. And then, as you travel up the Garonne, that brings you to Cadillac. And from Cadillac, we visit the Sauternes region. This castle that you see here on this slide is in the Sauternes, and that's a region that produces wine. And you just saw that it's wine that is produced of rotten grapes, if you will. And it has a very high sugar content. So those are dessert wines. Thomas Jefferson loved those. And Cadillac, by the way, is the town that the castle, the lords of Cadillac, believe it or not, weren't very popular at some point in France. And before they really ran afoul of the king, the Dukes of Cadillac left, went to the New World, and founded the city of Detroit. So the American name Cadillac comes from Cadillac in the south of France. And once a year, there's a Cadillac rally in and around the town of Cadillac. Okay, and that brings us back to Bordeaux. We have another introduction, or a post introduction to the Chateau, Rivers, and Wine itinerary. And then there's more questions, Benjamin.
Join us on a delightful journey through southwestern France for 8 relaxing days round trip from Bordeaux. Bordeaux is a graceful port filled with remarkable architecture and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. On this voyage, you'll experience the unique ambience of the region, its culture and tasty cuisine. And of course, a delicious exploration of lands that have produced France's most legendary wines. You'll sail along the Gironde River to Pauillac for a wine country tour of the Medoc region, home to some of the world's most beautiful chateaux and renowned wines. There are plenty of tasting opportunities along the way, including the area's famous Margaux. At Blaye, the beautiful 17th century citadel dominates the landscape and offers impressive views of the river. You'll visit Saint-Emilion, a lovely hillside town that dates back to prehistoric times and is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. From Cadillac, it's off to the Sauternes region to learn how the area's distinctively flavoured sweet wines are made. Then it's back to charming Bordeaux to soak in the history and beauty of this magical city.
All right, and Benjamin, I was wrong. Hold your horses for just a minute with the questions, because I wanted to briefly talk about the extensions. I've mentioned it earlier. I think if you've never been, you should spend 3 nights in Paris before you start on a Paris to Paris cruise. You can even tack this on to a southern France cruise. There is the option, and this is only for a very few select dates, to visit Oxford, and with that, Highclere Castle of Downton Abbey fame, and you get a tour that is. We built that together with the folks at Highclere, the owners of the estate, and then our next extensions are the best of Belgium. It's a short little train ride again from Paris to Brussels, and from Brussels, Belgium is a very small country, so you can do an awful lot in those 3 nights that you have there to get a good overview of that country. There is the option to go to Reims and the Champagne region, and as you can see, that's a relatively new extension that we have. In the south, there is the possibility to spend 2 nights in Aix-en-Provence, which is just a lovely city. It doesn't have grand monuments, but it is one of those places where, again, you feel like you're in a 3-dimensional postcard. Burgundy vineyards are worth a visit if you're a wine connoisseur, or if you're a wine aficionado, or if you just like wine. I would absolutely recommend this. You spent your time in Dijon, one of my favorite cities, partially because it has a covered market with great food. Great selection of cheeses, but the wines in Burgundy are, of course, what you go there for. And there's plenty of time to sample those. The Loire Valley, with its chateaus, is another option that you have. It's southwest of Paris. And finally, and this is relatively new also, you can travel to an area called Midi-Pyrénées, which is in the southwest towards the Pyrenees, and you spend time in Toulouse, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site because it has these gorgeous brick buildings, one of the largest brick churches in medieval times in the world. But it happens to be where the Airbuses are designed and built. And the Canal du Midi goes through Toulouse, and that's a UNESCO World Heritage Site because at the time it was unheard of that you would build a canal that goes up a hill and then down a hill. It's really a series of locks that is super interesting. Benjamin, questions?
Yes, Carrie would like to know if there will be any basic French lessons on the ship.
No, every the people on the ship will need to speak French because they're in France and they can help you. It's not something that you can, we'll teach you bonjour, ça va, au revoir, little words, yes. But you really should start studying now. The French are very picky. Most people in the towns and villages that we visit will understand enough French, or will understand enough English, and because this is just how the French are, they will assume that their English is much better than your French. So they will, even if you try, they will probably try to answer you in English. So no, we don't really do French classes, but we can help you. Absolutely.
That clears things up nicely. Thank you. Now, Arthur and Harry are curious about the wine selections on the Viking France ships. Is it extensive or does it feature only French wines?
No, it actually is. It is quite extensive, and it has it does have a fairly a lot of the wine on the menu is French, of course. But the list also has California wines. It has wines from all over the world.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mark is curious if Bordeaux is more red wine oriented versus white wine.
Yeah, I'd say so, but that doesn't mean. I mean, the Sauterne is a white wine. It's a sweet wine, and you do have Grave has white wines. Pomerol has white wines. It's about 60-40, I would say. And the reds are much better known, obviously, and they're probably of a higher quality. But yeah, no, it's both. It really is both.
Would the Chateau Rivers and Wine itinerary still be a suitable itinerary for them if they are not wine drinkers?
Yeah. No, look, I mean, Bordeaux is a fantastic city. The Vauban Fortress is a really interesting place to see. The little towns are delightful. It would help if you were to drink wine, but it's not like you couldn't go there if you wouldn't enjoy, if you would not drink.
Good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Julia and Harold want to know how long they'll be docked each day and if they can leave the ship to explore on their own, or are they tied to the excursions that Viking provides?
No. The whole idea is that we really, consider the ship a platform from which you can do a number of things. This is also where our optional excursions come in. We don't believe that one size fits all. And if you, for half a day or for a day, just want to strike out on your own, that's what the river cruises are so perfect for. You can do this. And we encourage it, and especially on the afternoons. I'm personally always a little sad if, good. Look, I think some people are just tired, and that's fine. But I'm always a little sad when you see people in an afternoon that are on the sun deck. It's their prerogative. I'm happy that they're happy sitting in the sun. But we really want you to explore. Go out there and do your own thing or do our thing. Doesn't really matter. And to answer the question, because it was kind of like how much we spend. We really try to balance between, on all of these itineraries, we try to balance between showing you a little bit of action on the river where you sail and you can sit on the sun deck and enjoy the view and all that, and time in port. And I think we do a very decent job in making sure that each of those ports you have a decent amount of time.
Now, Noreen is asking, is there a program of entertainment or activities on board the river ships in France?
Yes. So there are daily port talks that inform you about what goes on the next day. Those usually come with a little bit of information, historical background, a little bit of a framework. We have lectures that we present. We here and there bring outside entertainment on board, French chansons. So there's different things. You do spend quite a bit of time off the ship, of course, but when you stay on the ship, yes, there's a little bit of an education and a little bit of entertainment there as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Circling back to the Paris in the heart of Normandy itinerary, Jim and Gordy are asking if they'll be able to see the Mont Saint-Michel.
Alas, that's the one place where we haven't quite figured out how we can bring you there. It's too far from Paris to just do a day trip. It's too far from the Seine River to just do a day trip. So you need a little bit more time there. But around Mont Saint-Michel, there aren't very many hotels of a category that we would be comfortable with. So for now, until we've cracked that nut, what I would say is you could spend some time in if that's really what's on your bucket list, I would probably spend some time in Bordeaux, which is the closest, somewhat better situated city from which to go to Mont Saint-Michel. And don't get tempted to book one of those full day trips from Paris. I would just not do it. It's 12 hours. It's more time on a coach than you spend on Mont Saint-Michel itself, and you get there at a point where it's busiest. And what you really want to do in Mont Saint-Michel is go there early in the morning when you kind of have the entire island for yourself.
Now, Ron, Philip, Harry, and a few others are asking what the shipboard credits can be used for. I think they're noticing on the exclusive offer.
Yep. Anything that you could spend money on the ship. You can essentially just use it to balance your onboard account. So shore excursions, tips, anything that you buy from a shop, drinks that you buy above and beyond what we include. So anything.
So it looks like we're at our end time of 11:15 Pacific, but we received so many great questions. We haven't had a chance to address a lot of them yet. For those of you who need to leave, we completely understand and appreciate you joining us today. But if you're able to stay on for a little bit longer, around 5 minutes, we'll continue the Q&A session to answer more of your questions. And one of those questions comes from Donna, Margaret, and several others asking about special dietary requirements like vegetarian, low sodium, and gluten-free meals. Does Viking cater to these accommodations?
Yes. Best thing to do is make this known when you book. And then it's easy when you arrive on the ship to have a quick chat with the chef who will already be informed. And we have these options. I remember the days, because I've been with Viking for a very, very long time, where we struggled with getting good, and this is how long ago that is, vegetarian food was a bit of an issue because it was just not something that was that well established. These days, it's not a problem. Whatever it is that you, I always say that the one thing we can do is have like a strictly kosher diet because we only have one galley. So, but other than that, we can cater to most people's needs, virtually everyone's needs. It never really becomes a big issue.
Wonderful, thank you.
And it's tasty. It's tasty, Benjamin. That's important too, because vegans and vegetarians don't just want to have food that tastes like nothing. So we do invest quite a bit of time in making tasty vegan and vegetarian dishes.
Right, that variety is important for sure. Now, Diane and Robert are asking about Viking Air. Do we recommend that they book their flights through Viking, and would transfers be included?
Yes, if you book air through Viking, your transfers are included. If you book your own air, you can still get transfers, but you need to pay for them, and you need to give us your information so that we can actually pick you up. These things don't happen, miraculously. We need to know when you are arriving, we work with airlines, and as everyone knows by now, the getting there is. It used to be half the fun, but not so much anymore. And unfortunately, we deal with the same thing, but we take a lot of the guesswork out of it. And if, God forbid, anything would need to be changed with your schedule, if you book through us, we'll fix it for you. So, Yeah, Viking air is a good thing.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Now, Bill and Gina and Janet would like to know if they need to worry about water levels at all for the France River cruises, particularly the Seine, they're saying.
No, the Seine is actually it's relatively it has a number of large locks. It's relatively well regulated. It happens. High water happens sometimes, but it's very rare. It's not. France in general is the least of our concerns when it comes to water levels.
Perfect. Thank you. Now, Wendy would like to know if there's a sommelier on board the ship. And we have another question from Robert asking if you have recommendations, perhaps, of what to drink.
Um, hmm. We train our restaurant managers, so they will have, and they're trained on the region that they travel through. And all of this is masterminded by a team, a fairly substantial team that sits in Basel, Switzerland. And we pride ourselves in making sure that you do that. A, we offer you what you should drink in these areas, and B, that our staff on the ship knows what to recommend. My own recommendations, and I know that that's maybe not exactly what you're looking for, but all of these wines grow in particular regions. And with those regions, it comes with the soil, it comes with the climate, it comes with where exactly the grapevines are located, and so on and so forth. And with that comes also a particular food. So you would drink a Côte du Rhône, for instance, and if you want to have some cheese with it, you would get local cheese and you would have local dishes. So I generally think that you should have the wine of, and the beauty in France is they will spell this out for you. They will literally spell it out for you. If you're in this place, then this is what you should be drinking. In Tournon, for instance, you go across the river, and there's a small town called Tel-l'Hermitage, and you can actually see the Cros d'Hermitage vineyards that are right above the town. So what you drink always needs to be what it is that they grow behind the towns. That as you pass by, you will see these vineyards. That's what you should drink, and you should eat the food from there, because then you get the entire experience. That's how I always do it. And that's the best fun, and it makes sure that the food and the wine are kind of in sync with each other.
And we have time for maybe one last question here from Cheyenne asking, do you have any favorite privileged access excursions on our France itineraries?
Well, we have a privileged access extension with Highclere, but that's let's see. We have a few in southern France where you get to have very small cooking classes, cooking experiences. Those would be my favorites, because it allows you to meet people face to face in a smaller setting. I know that that's a little vague, but you'd have to look and make sure that on your particular journey they have that type of an experience. That is what I would go for. There's not anything in my mind that stands out like, oh, that is absolutely something that you have to do. But anything that deals with food and wine is always my favorite. I think that's how, especially in France, but in most parts of the world, there's no better way to explore than with your taste buds.
Oh, yes, France and its culinary delights. Thank you, Joost, for taking the time to answer all of our viewers' questions. We apologize for running a bit long, but we hope you've all taken some valuable information from our session today. We've received so many more questions than we can answer, and for those guests who still have questions that we were unable to get to, we will soon be in touch with answers to your queries. This webinar link will be shared to rewatch later today, as well as on Viking.TV.
Thanks for watching.